Hello, everyone. My name is Jerry Rothkoff, managing attorney of Rothkoff Law Group, an elder care law firm serving seniors and their caregiver loved ones, both in southeastern Pennsylvania and south and central New Jersey. It's a pleasure having you. Thank you for viewing our continuing series of Who's Who on the front lines of elder care through this pandemic that we're still dealing with. And it's a pleasure to have Kevin Daugherty Hook from Samaritan. Kevin is a nurse practitioner and the director of Samaritan's community-based palliative medicine program. And it's at Samaritan, and it's a pleasure to have you, Kevin. So thank you so much for joining us today.
Glad to be here.
So, well, I want to talk about hospice in general. Let me just lower my phone. But specifically related to the pandemic and the program that you're the director of.
Mm-hmm.
My information is that program is a little over 1 year in existence, the community-based palliative medicine program. Can you talk about that program a bit, since it's been, because that sounds like that was set up just before the start of COVID-19 pandemic, it sounds like.
Yeah, we started in mid-October, just getting started, and then by March, we got where we got. So really barely getting started, because it takes a while to build up a new delivery program.
So what I'm always interested is, I'm interested in the bigger picture, because I think that's what our audience, our viewers are interested in. So what, and the healthcare delivery system as a whole, and specifically, and obviously hospice has an important role to play, especially with the elder care clients. Right. So why did Samaritan see the need to bring you in to be the director of that community-based palliative care program? What was the need in the community? Obviously, that may change a bit related to COVID, but even a year and a half ago when this program was being conceived, what was the thought process behind it, and what was the guiding force behind the commencement of this program and in the larger South Jersey community?
Sure. Well, I think the best place to start is to tease out the difference between palliative medicine and hospice. I think there's a lot of maybe misunderstanding about the fact that you can access a palliative medicine clinician and not be really eligible for the formal hospice benefit. They both do the same thing in terms of symptom management. One is a formal program under the auspices of Medicare, which is a comprehensive set of services. Palliative medicine doesn't preclude you from accessing curative treatments, if that's really the path you're taking. It doesn't necessarily mean that whatever serious illness you have is life-threatening in the near term, but it is around symptom management of serious illness. So anybody who has a serious illness could ask their physician or nurse practitioner, whoever their primary care provider, or any specialist really, I think I'd like to see a palliative care or palliative medicine clinician. I have this one symptom. The physician team may say, yeah, we could use some help there managing this particular symptom of your illness or the treatment itself. So that's sort of a little bit of background about teasing those two out. Then the other half of your question, well, obviously for the community-based piece, if we're talking about homebound people, for obvious reasons, just getting out is a trial for many people, depending on their age and what's going on with them. So going to the home is a useful service for that. The other focus, and really where we started, is really delivering palliative medicine in a long-term care facilities, which the need has been known for quite some time, that within long-term care, there's already a frail population. So if we can support the staff there and the physician and nurse practitioner teams who round in those centers with symptom management, maybe goals of care conversations, maybe they're declining.
Okay. So, okay, all right. Maybe we use the word community differently. To me, community means a home and community-based setting, not a long-term care setting. Mm-hmm. So the home-based, the community-based palliative care does include individuals in long-term care communities.
It does. That part of the program hasn't really expanded the way we're hoping it will. So right now the focus has been mostly on home-based, homebound. Yeah,
When you say homebound, so
yeah.
so tell me what have been the challenges instituting this program related to COVID-19 that over the past 11 months or so?
Well, I think it's probably safe to say and probably obvious that the fear factor of contracting COVID-19. So when we didn't know what we know now about transmission and what protocols you might need to take to be safe, long-term care centers certainly didn't want anybody coming in there who didn't absolutely have to be there. So that was that population. Homebound folks who are already frail and would be more vulnerable to a COVID-19 infection and complications thereof, a little fearful. So telehealth actually emerged as our platform to be able to actually do that. And CMS historically hasn't really been keen on telehealth, except for some exceptions in the rural, very, very rural populations. But now it's expanded. And so now we do a lot of telehealth, visual, audio visual communications. We can't do a physical, it's very difficult, as you can imagine, to do a physical exam under those conditions, but you can certainly get a great deal of information about the review of what's going on with them, where their headspace is, what's their goal, can I help support that goal? And by the way, is there some symptom that I can collaborate with your physician team on to see if we can improve that?
Okay. And you talk about the distinction between hospice and palliative care. So if you say, if you tell a family, oh, we're recommending palliative care, is that more, is the family or the patient more receptive to the word palliative care as opposed to the terminology hospice?
It depends on their level of understanding. If they already have a sense that palliative medicine frequently leads at some point to a hospice recommendation, then they might be a little resistant to even the word palliative. Many people that I meet though really don't. They really don't have an understanding that my role for them is not to recommend hospice necessarily. It's really what's going on. How can I be of service, either symptomatically or as you're thinking about the future? What are you thinking is important? The two questions I typically ask people when I first meet with them, I don't bring up hospice at all unless I feel things are moving quickly, and I would be clinically remiss and ethically remiss if I didn't say, I think there's a host of services that are really going to support you, and I'm going to recommend hospice really pretty quickly here. Frequently, that's not the case. I ask people two things. What is most important to you, and what are you afraid of? And that can help launch the conversation about their goal going forward. Now, some people are still in treatment, so hospice would immediately be off the table because you can't be in a curative mode and a hospice mode. But some people are off treatment. They're just having a very slow decline. I'm thinking of a COPD, a patient with end-stage chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, or the heart failure patient, or maybe a cancer that's really a slow-growing cancer, but it's moving along. Death isn't imminent, but they're symptomatic. And so they're beginning to get a little afraid of the future and thinking about what that might mean for them. So I help create a space for them, as well as thinking about their symptoms, to have a conversation with me, give them a green light to have a conversation with their primary provider. You can bring it up. It's okay to bring that up, that you're afraid of this and that. And you begin to reframe how this life is going to go forward. And then the question becomes, are you more interested in quality of life at this point or longevity of life? And then we get into some very depthful conversations about what that is.
Yeah, asking questions certainly in the right fashion can elicit.
And what we know from the literature is that people will frequently not have that conversation. They're a little afraid of having that conversation with the family because everybody gets nervous about thinking about maybe the end, if you will. So the palliative medicine clinician we've been specially trained with particular skill set to be able to create a space for them to bring it up to at least us and begin to air that out, and then to help them figure out how to talk to family.
Let me ask you a broader question.
Mm-hmm.
And this is what interests me
about
because I like to study healthcare delivery systems.
Yeah, I do too.
Both the United States and Europe as well, and the
Yeah,
distinctions,
right.
with especially related to end-of-life care. So where do you, from your expertise in end-of-life care, palliative care, etc., what do you think is missing currently from our healthcare delivery system related to addressing the needs of those at end of life? You, as
Mhm.
the director of this palliative care program, with your experience, what's the missing ingredient that you would like to see going forward, as as part of the within Samaritan and broader? What if anything is missing? And not necessarily related to COVID. We can talk about post-COVID
Right,
over the
right,
next several months or years.
right.
What do you think we need to improve the healthcare delivery system, specifically related to end of life?
I think two things. One is from a strictly a palliative medicine at the meta, the 50,000-foot view, reimbursement structures to support palliative medicine. As you can imagine, if you're having a palliative medicine in clinical encounter, that could take up a lot of time. Should, at least initially, take up a fair amount of time. It's not going to be your typical 7 to 10 minute visit. Reimbursement structures from out of Medicare and insurance plans don't reimburse that amount of time. So it's financially can be financially precarious for organizations who want to sustain that over time. So there's a reimbursement issue for palliative medicine clinicians. But I also think that then within the culture of healthcare delivery, there is an aversion to bringing up a palliative medicine encounter, referral, call it what you want, for the very thing I just said. Among clinicians generally, there's a reticence to bring up anything remotely talking about end of life until it's really until it just is so obvious to everyone. As we typically say in palliative medicine and the hospice clinicians as well, it's always too early until it's too late to bring it up. So I would say there's a cultural aversion within medicine and nursing, not nursing so much. I'm not into bashing medicine, but I think this is not what physicians are about, trying to keep you going. And nurses and a nurse practitioner then, based on the nursing model, is more about, okay, well, really, where are you? What is really becoming important to you? But then by the same token, at that meta level,
Yeah,
reimbursement structures are really problematic for sustaining a program. So
I guess what you're trying to say, and maybe I'll be a little more succinct with and again, younger physicians a little different than
I believe so, yeah.
But for the average physician, especially, I would say the physician maybe age 50 plus, death equals failure.
Yeah, exactly. Well, the literature supports that.
Right.
That is, and in fact, I've read some literature that points us in those directions even more specifically. That for many physicians, bringing this up feels like they're beginning to abandon the patient. They don't want to abandon the patient.
And the interesting, before we end, because our time is limited, so the next few minutes that we have remaining, I just, just to conclude, related, obviously, I'm sure Samaritan has lost many patients, that related to COVID over the past year or so, and our office has lost 50 to 60 clients as a result of at least COVID related. Obviously, they were pre-existing morbidities. That goes without saying. Some of which of course, were on hospice already, and COVID threw them over the top, basically. And that's probably your similar experience for your patients.
Sure.
So, but what I found, when I'm talking to, and this is maybe related to the hospice, when I'm talking to their children or spouse after the fact, many of them are not necessarily bitter related to whether their loved one contracted COVID at the nursing home. In a strange way, many, I wouldn't say are thankful, but they would say, well, it was time.
Mm-hmm.
And so that I was surprised to get that reaction from many of our caregiver loved ones.
Yeah.
But I would say at least 50% of them, after speaking post death with them, the surprising attitude for many was, well, they're relieved. They're not necessarily bitter at the nursing home or assisted living for allowing COVID to come into their building, regardless of whether, that was, there was preventable or not, is a secondary discussion. Which I was surprised to hear. So, I think that what I'm trying to say, that reemphasizes the need for counseling at end of life, because it's very important.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're hitting on exactly the point that if they clearly then the pandemic then clearly revealed in the minds of family and maybe the patient and maybe the patient themselves that in fact things were moving along, but the COVID forced the issue. It forced the reckoning, if you will. From a clinician standpoint, what the pandemic did that was distressing, and we've all read about it, and we all know about it. The most distressing feature of it may not be, well, perhaps it was, they had all these other things going on, and perhaps it was time not being able to be present. That's really where the pandemic robbed people of that experience, which they'll have to make peace with that over time. But that was really the big one. I mean, we've never lived through anything like in our lifetimes like this.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the mourning process has been upended. Whatever religion you are, every religion has certain rituals related to end of life. So, and those, anytime you are not able to carry on traditions or rituals, which are an important part of the mourning process, either pre-death or post-death, it's going to have effect after the fact. So I would certainly agree with you on that.
Right. I agree. I totally agree. I think we may not have that experience. I mean, that may not be the issue going forward after we get through this pandemic piece. But it did drive home to I think what your point is that it drove the point home that if you wait too long to begin to have meaningful conversations or what people really want, something may happen that prevents that.
Right. So time at 15, 20 minutes does fly by. It was I really enjoyed our conversation. And not too many people I speak with enjoy studying healthcare delivery systems. So, we may be brothers from a different mother. I'm not sure. So, but I thank you so much for your time and with us once again, Kevin Daugherty Hook, who is the director of the Samaritan Community-Based Palliative Medicine program and at Samaritan, once again with Samaritan. It's a pleasure having you. I wish you and all the fine healthcare professionals at Samaritan the best of luck continuing with this pandemic, and you provide a valuable service to our clients and the public at large. And thank you so much for your time and for giving of yourself to others. So thank you once again, Kevin.
Oh, well, thank you very much.
All right.
I enjoyed it, and I'm glad we were able to have a conversation because I think it's one that it can never be had enough. Agreed. So thanks so much for your time. Have a great rest of the week, and happy Valentine's Day as well. Thank you, and the same to you. All right. Bye-bye now. Bye now.